everyone! Today I'm doing my monthly manga reading log for June. I read 100 volumes from 24 different series, and I'm going to try to move through the series a little more quickly than my previous reading logs. There were quite a few that I didn't enjoy reading, but as I go through each one, I'll try not to dwell on the negative. There will be timestamps, so feel free to skip to whatever titles you're interested in. And after going through my June reads, I'll share some of the series I'm planning to read in July. As usual, I'll have links in the description to my anime list where I track and rate my reads, and also to my Instagram account where I usually daily am sharing my current thoughts on whatever I'm currently reading. But here are my reads for June, and I'll start with my pre-ordered volumes. A Condition Called Love. I read volumes 2 and 3 of this shoujo high school romance series. I enjoyed this latest release. We got a little bit of insight into Hotaru's past, and we got to see Hananoi have some vulnerable moments. But I really love this series, and I'm looking forward to the next volume release. In the Clear Moonlit Dusk, I read volumes 3 and 4. This is also a shoujo high school romance series. Before the English physical releases, I had read the fan translations, I think, halfway into volume 4, so I was really excited that with this volume I was able to get some new content. Both Yoi and Kohaku get some really good development in this volume as they are getting more in touch with their feelings and thinking about what they want from each other. But I really like this mangaka. Her art style and character designs are so dreamy, but really looking forward to volume 5 now. Rainbow Days. I read volumes 3 and 4. This is a shoujo slice of life series that follows a group of 4 high school boys. I really like this series because I find all 4 of the boys really lovable in their own way. And a couple of their romances are really cute. There is one character that I find extremely irritating, so I'm glad I like the entire rest of the cast. But this series is complete at 16 volumes, so I'm looking forward to adding each additional volume to my collection as they release. Something's Wrong with Us. I read volumes 14 and 15 of this josei mystery, romance, drama series. And as usual, a really good volume with a lot of shocking reveals. I'm really happy with the developments. A lot of loose ends are tied up in this volume 15, and they're pretty satisfying in my opinion. So now after volumes 14 and 15, there's 1 volume remaining from the main story and then the 3 side story volumes, so really looking forward to those. An Incurable Case of Love. I read volumes 1 to 7 of this josei series. This was a buddy read with a friend on Instagram, and the story follows a young woman who becomes a nurse to pursue romance with a cranky doctor who helped her when she was younger. Both characters have some very unprofessional moments with a lot of the story being set at the hospital they work at, but I do like both of their strong personalities. It does have quite a bit of cheesy and cliche drama throughout, but overall I liked it. Everyone's Getting Married. I read volumes 1 to 9 of this josei series. It follows a woman who works in real estate who is set on getting married and becoming a housewife as she pursues a man who works as a reporter or newscaster who doesn't want to get married. Not just to her, but just in general, he doesn't want to get married. So there are sections of the story that I liked, but overall, I didn't like it. In the earlier volumes, I didn't like one character's attitude toward their previous involvement with infidelity, mainly the fact that afterwards, they didn't think there was anything wrong with what they did. But then in the middle of the series, I did really like the developments and the progression of the story and the communication between the characters. The things in the beginning that really agitated me early on weren't brought up again, so I thought maybe the story would end up being okay. But then the final volume had a development that I thought was just really stupid, and it ruined my perception of the only one character that I had consistently liked throughout the whole story, to the point that it just ruined the ending for me. But I liked the art style, and there are some sections of the story that I did enjoy, but the couple of bad points in it just really ruined it for me. I want to make my demon boss blush. I think this series has a digital-only release in Japan, so instead of volumes, I read chapters 1 to 21 of this workplace romance series. It follows a young woman who used to be a delinquent who now works at an office, and her boss who is kind of a jerk, but it turns out he's a big softie who blushes during certain interactions. There are some cheesy and cliche things that happen, and then some more serious drama too, but I like that every time it just moves past it quickly to the next thing. But the art style is cute and the characters are likable, so I will be continuing this series. We Can't Do Just Plain Love. I read volume 1 of this josei workplace romance series. This one is an 18+ title with censored bedroom scenes, so for an adult audience. But it follows a woman who transfers departments at work and starts working under the male lead, Kiritani, and is really attracted to the way that he smells. And meanwhile, Kiritani is very awkward around women because of the way his body reacts when interacting with them. So she offers to help him react more normally to women in exchange for spending time with him so she can be able to freely enjoy his scent. But I really enjoyed this one. Kiritani is super good looking, and Yuino is a really funny and quirky girl. And outside of the bedroom, I do like the characters and the premise and the story, so looking forward to the Volume 2 release. Firefly Wedding. I read volumes 1 and 2 and really liked it. This one is probably my favorite read of the month. This is a josei series set in the Meiji era, following a very sickly girl who gets kidnapped and has to rely on an assassin who is pretty unstable because of his upbringing, who becomes a bit obsessed with her. This series has a strange mix of romance, drama, and comedy, but also some graphic violence. And it reminds me of a few of my favorite series, Love of Kill, Raisei wa Tanagai, and then because of the historical setting, it also reminded me of the art style from a couple other series I like that are also set in the Meiji era, Kimi no Koi and Will You Marry Me If You Are Reborn. But this series has a digital-only English release right now, but I'm following the story and hoping for a future physical release. Just a Few Words. This is by the same mangaka of Firefly Wedding, and I read volume 1 of this series. I'm not sure if it's actually a one-shot or if it will continue past this volume. But it follows a married couple who have grown distant emotionally as well as their intimacy. But in this volume, they start taking steps to rekindle their relationship, and I really enjoyed it. I like the art style, and I'll be on the lookout if it does continue past this one volume. Golden Kamuy. I read volumes 1 to 3. This is a seinen historical action-adventure series with some graphic violent content. I went in pretty blind. I just knew about the treasure map tattooed on the prisoners and that it was set in the early 1900s. But I didn't know it was going to be so gruesome. There are war scenes, animal maulings, and it was just a bit too much for me. The content with informational segments about the Ainu people and talking about hunting and butchering and cooking in the wild felt pretty abrupt, just cutting in and out of the main story. I did really like the main guy in it, and the premise is really interesting, so I definitely can understand why this is such a popular series, but the depictions of gore just were a bit too much for me. Requiem of the Shogun. I read volumes 1 to 3. This is a historical series. A man in the early 1900s recounts the events following a group of samurai in the 1850s and 1860s. This one too had some graphic violent content, but I did better with this one than I did with Golden Kamuy. I don't know, I guess I just might do better with katana violence rather than old musket guns and animal violence, I don't know. But in this one, I love the character designs and also the found family elements. A big reason I wanted to read this was because in the shoujo series, Tsubakicho Lonely Planet, Akatsuki-sensei is a historical novelist who likes to write about samurai. And I want to find a series that I can read and pretend it's a manga adaptation of one of Akatsuki's novels. But I need to go back and take some notes about his writing style and time periods and settings he writes about to make sure I find the right series. But I don't really know a lot about samurai, so it's been fun to read so far. It is completed at 36 volumes, but has a digital-only release in English that only has through volume 3 so far and hasn't been updated for several years, so we'll see if we get more of this series in English in the future. Dr. Stone, I read volumes 1 to 6. This is a shonen adventure series following the survivors of a cataclysmic event that turned everyone on the planet into stone. That premise is basically all I knew about this series before getting into it. That and that there's a lot of content about science, but I'm really enjoying it so far. I really like the main character, Senku, and I'm planning to finish the series in July, and then sometime when I catch up on my anime backlog, I want to watch the anime too. I really like Senku's Japanese voice actor, and from what I've seen from trailers, the animation looks pretty good, and I've heard the soundtrack is really good too. Spirit Circle, I read Volume 1 of this seinen series about reincarnation. I didn't think I'd enjoy it because of the supernatural elements. There's a middle schooler who can see ghosts and a new classmate who has a ghost following her that she can also see. And the events that follow start to take him back through his previous lives. So I thought the series was going to be cute and pretty light, but then it got kind of gruesome right away with 2 bloody deaths, which really caught me off guard. I'm not really crazy about the art style and the character designs, but the premise is interesting, and since it's completed already with only 6 volumes, I am planning on continuing this one digitally. Dead Dead Demons, Dead 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 Destruction. This is a series I never would have tried if Volume 1 wasn't gifted to me, as I'm not crazy about this mangaka's art style and storytelling, but I read Volume 1 and it wasn't for me. The premise is interesting, seeing what humanity is like during an alien invasion, but after 1 volume, I was not invested in the story or any of the characters. I didn't like the style of humor or any of the character designs. The only things that I liked were that the volume had French flops and the background illustrations in all of the panels, like the classrooms, streets, buildings, cityscapes. They all looked really good, but that isn't enough to motivate me to read any more of this series. The Two Lions. This is a slice of life romance one-shot set in university. All of the characters are really likable, and I like series that have delinquent characters, especially when they're misunderstood and are actually really kind. I especially liked the side characters who were such good friends to Junpei and Leo, so the childhood friend and the coworker, as well as Leo's grandpa. I really liked the message from him that it's good to be strong, but to be as kind as you are strong. But I really like the art style and the character designs in this volume. And I read this as a buddy read with a couple friends on Instagram, so I really enjoyed chatting after we read. I also read 2 series by the creators of A Sign of Affection, so Shortcake Cake and Like a Butterfly. So first, Shortcake Cake. I read volumes 1 to 12. This is a shoujo series that follows a group of high schoolers from different schools who all live together in a boarding house. I absolutely loved the art style and the character designs. I wasn't crazy about the first half of the series because of cliche tropes that made it hard for me to take certain characters seriously, and certain developments that felt really abrupt. One character's entire personality changes within just a couple characters, so that too felt strange and abrupt, but the second half of the series had a much different tone from the first half, and I really liked it. The plot was really interesting, and the character development was good. And then the ending was really satisfying. I always really love when series following high school students end with a time skip so readers can see where all of the characters end up. And we got several post-time skip chapters that were really nice. I'm planning to read the series again after a while to see if I can enjoy the first half, knowing how much I enjoyed the ending. And then Like a Butterfly. I read volumes 1 to 3 in May, so I continued and read volumes 4 to 12. This is a shoujo high school romance series. It follows a very pretty girl who is very quiet and doesn't deal well with boys because of past interactions with boys who were infatuated with her. She meets a boy who doesn't give her the usual attention she normally is given by boys and becomes interested in him. And then he's a quiet boy active in the judo club who is bad at interacting with girls. So I loved the art style. The character designs are gorgeous. The main two characters are such good kids, and their innocent romance is really sweet. The pacing does feel really slow though. Not necessarily that their romance is a slow burn, because I don't really think it is, but just the fact that the whole story just is really slow moving and it only focuses on the romance without much of anything else going on. And while the two become more comfortable communicating with each other as the story goes, I didn't think there was much evident character development for the 12-volume series to be spanning 3 years. But it was a very cute and sweet read. But Volume 1 was just released in English, so I hope people will enjoy it, but it's not one that I'm planning to collect physically. Home Sweet Home. I read volumes 1 and 2 of this shoujo romance series. It follows the cohabitation of 2 high schoolers. The girl stays behind in her family's home when her parents are transferred for work, with the condition that she can stay there without them if she lives with her dad's boss's daughter as a roommate. But then it turns out to be his son and not a daughter. There are some annoying characters, so I wasn't sure if I'd like it when I was reading Volume 1. But I do like the 2 main characters and liked the developments in Volume 2. This is by the same mangaka who did Rainbow Days, so as expected, I like the art style and the humor. But unlike Rainbow Days, this time it's from the perspective of the main girl. I believe this series is complete at 3 volumes, so I'm looking forward to reading the final volume. Dream and Sun. I read volumes 1 to 10. This is another shoujo cohabitation romance series, and it's by the creator of Orange. It follows a high school girl who runs away from home and starts living in a share house with 2 other high school boys and the landlord, who is a man in his early 20s. I was looking forward to reading this one because the art style and character designs are really cute, but unfortunately, I didn't care for it. The characters all have fun personalities, but the premise is absurd to me, that the main girl's dad would just let his underage daughter live with a bunch of guys just because she wants to. And then the way the relationships develop and the characters drastically change without having any character development to justify those changes. The final 4 volumes were really hard to get through. I found the main girl to be really immature, so I couldn't take her seriously at all and couldn't buy into any of the relationships she pursued. But if you don't like age gap romances, this series is probably not for you. Glad to have checked this off my TBR, but I did not enjoy it. Tsuiraku JK to Haijin Kyoshi. I read volumes 3 to 13. I read the first 2 volumes a few months ago, and I couldn't really get into it, but I wanted to give it another try. This is a shoujo age gap romance series that follows the relationship between a high school girl and her physics teacher. The premise of the series is that the teacher stops her from jumping off the school roof when she's depressed and tells her to try falling in love with him as a reason to keep living. And while some of it is serious, a lot of it is sarcastic and brought up in a joking manner, which is something that bothered me. And then I'm not opposed to age gap romances depending on the premise and the way the characters are written, but the one in this series was not for me. There's a lot of sexual tension between them, but I couldn't view it as chemistry between them because I couldn't find a single reason why he would have fallen in love with her. And the girl's character design looks so young. But it made me feel really awkward and uncomfortable reading because both at school and outside of school, while being her teacher, he's constantly pressing up against her, holding her from behind, kissing her neck. I almost dropped it a few times while reading because the relationship was not compelling to me at all. But some friends really like this series, so I was hoping to just keep reading a little more and get to some developments that would give me a reason to support their relationship. And there was a backstory section in volume 10 that explains some of the teacher's background and motivations, but by volume 13, I still was not invested in the relationship, and the style of dark humor was not for me, so I'm not planning on continuing this one. And lastly, I read 3 series by the mangaka of Aoharu Ride. So first I've read volumes 7 to 12 of Love Me, Love Me Not. I read the first half of the series last month, so continued it this month. This was a buddy read with some friends on Discord. This is a shoujo high school romance with themes of unrequited love that follows the different relationships of 2 girls and 2 boys. And this series wasn't for me. I couldn't really get into the story because there was a character who really irritated me from start to finish. So I just couldn't take them seriously at all and couldn't buy into any of their relationships. And then, in addition to that, I didn't like the story progression. A lot of the romantic developments are really abrupt and just not really believable because of characters just changing their mind about something or deciding something without having a compelling reason. I always feel bad when I dislike a series when I'm buddy reading with someone who is just loving it, but because of that, while reading, I was trying to find things I liked from each volume to contribute in a positive way to the group chat. A couple things I did like in the series: the humor is pretty good. Most of the comical moments I did think were funny and written well. And then also moments where there's romantic tension or jealousy. The art style depicts the characters' emotions really well. But overall, I didn't like this one, and I'm just glad to finally have read this series so I could check it off my list. Strobe Edge. This is another shoujo high school romance. I was not that inclined to read this series because even though I like the art style of this mangaka's other series, the art style in this one felt older with big eyes and tiny mouths, but I felt I needed to give it a try since it's viewed as a classic. I read volume 1 and it felt really familiar, and by the end of the volume, I realized I had read this before years ago and just didn't take note of the title. To confirm it, I skimmed through the final 2 volumes of the series and yep, I had read it. And seeing the ending again, I did remember that I didn't really care for this series. Just very typical cliche developments, and I didn't care for the main girl that much. I felt like she was really immature, so it's hard for me to enjoy a series if I don't like both of the main characters. And then I read the same mangaka's newest work, Sakura Saku, which is getting an English physical release starting this winter, and I wanted to read it to decide if I would want to collect it physically. I went into it a little negative because I had just read these other 2 series by this mangaka and didn't enjoy them, even though I do like Aoharu Ride quite a lot. And also because I didn't like the main girl's character design at all. But that didn't end up bothering me because she was such a sweetheart. I read volumes 1 to 6 of the shoujo high school romance series. I like that the message through at least the first section of the story is about what it means to be genuinely kind to people. A high school friend group starts to form of a handful of really good kids. I'm glad with how the female characters were written. There are some decisions they make that, in my opinion, are against the typical shoujo grain, and I was happy to see some mature decision making. That being said, there is some drama that comes in. The first couple volumes are pretty feel-good, but then volumes 3 and 4 have some drama and conflict that frustrated me thinking it was going to go in one direction, but then I liked the way everything was resolved. So I'm planning to keep following this one. Still not sure if I'm going to collect it physically until it gets a bit further into the series, because whether or not I'll like this series as a whole will depend on the ending. But those were all my reads from June, and then my July TBR. I'm planning to finish Dr. Stone, so volumes 7 to 26. I'm going to be buddy reading Honey So Sweet on Instagram, volumes 1 to 8. I just got the 6th Tokyo Revengers omnibus volume, so I'm planning to read that. Volume 12 of Love of Kill comes out in July, so I'm planning to reread volumes 1 to 11 before the volume 12 release. And then I'm going to be buddy reading Durarara with Dragon Ball Zoe, so volumes 1 to 4 of the main story, then volumes 1 to 3 of the Saika arc, volumes 1 to 3 of the Yellow Scarves arc, and then volumes 1 to 8 of the Dollars arc. I've watched the anime for Durarara and really enjoyed it, so I'm looking forward to reading the manga. And then in between or after reading all these, I'll probably try to read a few other series that are on my annual TBR for 2023. I'm gradually trying to get through that list as well. But that's everything for my July TBR and June manga reading log. As always, let me know in the comments what you've been reading lately or what you have on your TBR. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon in another video.